Hello, my name is Abbie Mason, and today I will be presenting on the topic of hookworms. To start, I wanted to begin by introducing some of the larger categorizations of hookworms. So, hookworms fall under the larger phylum of nematodes, which are within the even larger categorization of helminths or parasitic worms. Nematodes are roundworms, meaning that they are bilaterally symmetrical in structure, and they are also eukaryotic. These organisms, in comparison to some of the other microbes studied in class, like bacteria or viruses, are more complex and have epidermal and muscle cells, digestive systems, a simple nervous system, and reproductive systems. They also appear to have a small degree of sexual dimorphism, which, beyond the expected differences in reproductive organs, females also tend to be larger than the males, which I will discuss more later in this presentation. Hookworms, which are most common in human intestinal infections, include Ancylostoma duodenale, Ancylostoma silencium, and Necator americanus, all of which are soil-transmitted helminths, meaning that they are spread by contaminated soil. They are also the most common roundworm infection in humans. But back to the various species of hookworms common in humans, the major differences between them are their regional location, size, and mode of infection and spread. They all generally appear in Africa, Asia, Australia, and the Americas. However, A. duodenale predominates here in the Americas as well as in South India. N. americanus infects the Middle East, North Africa, and Northern India. And A. silencium predominates Southeast Asia and the Pacific Islands as the second highest hookworm species infecting these regions, with a striking absence in Europe or North America. While differing in location, they also differ in size, with N. americanus being the smallest species and A. duodenale being the largest, with no visual differences between their eggs. As I've mentioned before, the males of each species are represented by the lower end of these ranges, and the females are the larger ones. Finally, Ancylostoma can become dormant in the intestinal or muscle tissue, leading to reactivation of the infection at a later time. And A. silencium can be spread by zoonotic infection compared to the other two species. This is often seen transferred by dogs and cats infected by hookworms. In my next picture, this goes further into the life cycle of the hookworm and its travel throughout the body. The cycle begins when eggs are released by the feces of an infected person, or in the case of the zoonotic species, an infected dog or cat. These eggs then develop outside of the body until they are falciform larvae, which are able to penetrate the skin, often the bare foot of a person, and then travel through the bloodstream into the lungs. Once the hookworm reaches the lung, they are mechanically forced into the throat by coughing before they are ultimately swallowed. This is how hookworms finally reach the digestive tract and attach to the intestinal wall until eggs are released through the feces again. Hookworms infect upwards of 740 million people worldwide, thriving in areas with moist, warm climates. This is related to the dormant behavior of hookworm maturation and egg formation because it allows for the larva to wait until optimal conditions to ensure the continuation of their life cycle. Eggs are less likely to mature into larval stage in arid or dry soil. Additionally, hookworms are prevalent in impoverished and underdeveloped locations, often with poor sanitation, resulting in people defecating outside, using human feces as fertilizer, walking barefoot, and having jobs involving work in soil or the inhalation of infected soil. This is why hookworm infection was widespread in the early 20th century amongst the American South. The infection was both caused by and perpetuated poverty, with symptoms resulting in the lazy Southerner stereotype. Southerners became tired, anemic, and often suffered from cognitive underdevelopment due to familial history of hookworms. Um, I'll get further into these symptoms later, but these symptoms were largely caused by the virulent enzymes released by hookworms at the time of penetration and infection. These organisms release hyaluronidase to degrade the structural units of the body to allow for their attachment. Proteolytic enzymes allow for the penetration through the foot or skin, while hydrolytic enzymes and the teeth or hooks, which give hookworms their name, allow for the attachment to the intestinal wall. Anticoagulants and neutrophil inhibitory factors allow for the parasite to go unnoticed by the immune system, further allowing for the organism to be able to go into dormancy when necessary without detection or threat. While intestinal hookworm infections often present as asymptomatic, the aforementioned virulence factors result in symptoms like ground itch or itch and edema at the site of entry, pneumonia, abdominal pain, nausea, iron and protein deficiency associated with the blood loss, not only ingested by the hookworms, but also lost at the site of attachment, blood and stool, and developmental retardation in infected children, affecting both children of pregnant women who are infected and infected children themselves. However, treatment for hookworms is fairly simple. Lab identification just requires a stool sample in order to identify the presence and number of eggs. In many locations where there is a high number of hookworm infections, there is preventative treatment for at-risk people, as well as medication like albendazole, mebendazole, or parental, which funnily enough is actually what we use in cases of hookworm in our rescue animals back home. Treatment is ultimately brief and only lasts 1 to 3 days. Additional preventative measures can also be made, including avoiding walking barefoot or ingesting soil, implementing effective sewage systems to avoid contamination of the ground and soil, and to treat animals and pets for hookworms to prevent further contamination. To finish my presentation, I have included some images from the 1920s, as well as this image here, which is an example of the ground itch. You can physically see the path in which the hookworm larva has crawled through the underneath of this person's skin. This photo here also, I read, was included in instructional pamphlets for school-aged children and shows the hookworm infection as well as the source of the infection, including the outhouse and the dog here. Finally, this is my source slide, but this last link here is to a YouTube video which talks about the lazy Southerner stereotype and its connection to hookworm infection. I highly recommend it. It's a very interesting watch. Anyways, thank you for listening to my presentation and have a nice day.